Hello and welcome back to Granted Gardens. My name is Melissa and today we are doing a full garden tour. And this time I'm fully prepared with key essentials. So a few things to note: finally got my phone sort of fixed. I realized that it was a cracked screen protector. So I took the screen protector off and we have a better view now, which is great because in that last video it was a little rough. But we got it, we're getting there. So I'm really excited to do this. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be picked today as well. I've been trying to kind of hold off so that we could pick with you guys. So this is gonna also be kind of like a little bit of a harvest video as well. So we're gonna start up here on the deck. So our deck is our space that we use to kind of play around with like potting and small space gardening. So on our deck we have pots that surround the edges of the deck, and we have done this for years now. Normally these plants actually do a lot better than any of the other plants that we have planted on the property. I think it's just a matter of they kind of get tended to more often because we're always up here. They get a lot more sun because this pretty much stays in the sun for the majority of the day. And I always have this like theory that music, you know, is good for plants, and so we play a lot of music up here too. So that's it. That's totally what it is. It's the music. So I'm gonna walk you guys through what we've got, and we're gonna harvest a few things as well. So the first monster here is our crookneck squash, which is doing fabulous. So we actually have a couple to harvest today. Oh look, and we're out early enough to see the flowers. So pretty. So the flowers tend to close once the sun comes up in full blast. They kind of shut down, and then you can see the other crookneck right back there. So fun fact, the flower on our logo represents a squash flower because they are my favorite kind of flowers. I think that they're just the most beautiful thing, and they're always so big and you can always see bees in them. And I like the fact that you kind of have to like be out at a specific time in order to catch them. Like you don't get to see them all day long. So you kind of have to be up and at them in order to see them. So love squash flowers. Beautiful. And just as I say that, there goes a hard worker in there right now. That looks like a honeybee. Moving along, we've got some tomatoes. So this is the giant crimson tomato that my friend Samantha actually sent me seeds from. So these are going to get much bigger, these tomatoes here. We need to work on adjusting their support system. I feel like I was kind of out of the loop on this one, but apparently the giant crimson tomatoes, I believe they were through M.I. Gardener, and apparently like that concept of like that variety of tomato had been extinct, and then he found seeds that were like 80 years old and got them to germinate and then is sharing them with people, selling them to people. And so she got her hands on some and she shared it with our admin group, and so I'm excited to try them. I think that's a really cool concept. I might have that story wrong, correct me below, but I think that's the gist of it. And over here we've got zucchini. This plant got really sick, and so I had to chop it up a bit. I don't think he's gonna make it. I think he might be done. But this one's doing great. This one's doing great. We got a couple in here. This big one here. That one back there. Next here is my blue goldberry cherries. These are one of my favorite cherry tomatoes to grow just because of the colors on them. These still have a really long way to go. But essentially where you see that they're green, that greenish part here on the bottom will be gold. And then basically anywhere that the sun really hits, mostly the shoulders of the tomatoes, will be purple. Or blue, I guess, but they look more purple. They're really pretty to have out like on the table as snacks and such. And then over here we have another 2 zucchini plants. We've had some issue with what looks like pollination issues. This guy looks like he's doing just fine. He's almost ready, but we'll give him another day or so. Got lots of babies. And then over here, we've got those guys right there. So that, I believe, is a pollination issue. Those two are really no good. I'm gonna go ahead and clip them out because I don't want the plant spending time trying to put energy into these when they're really not going to be edible for us. So you can see here, the ends are starting to rot a bit. This one I pulled, it's not quite as developed, but you can already tell early stages here of end rot where it's kind of shrivelly. And then this one here is another example. So this is like really dying back. It's gonna get moldy and squishy. It's really not gonna be edible at that point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop off the end of this, like the bad part, and maybe give like the decent part of it still to the chickens. Moving along, we've got some snapdragons. These are first for me to grow this year. I think those are really pretty. Some peppers, I believe. What is that? I think that's a Thai pepper plant, so we don't really have anything really happening quite yet. We got some flowers in there and that's it. Excuse the mess. Moving along, I've got some plants here that I purchased that I need to get in the ground still. Here is a second round of some starts that we're gonna add to the garden just to kind of beef it up a little bit. That's referred to as succession sowing. Once some of the original plants that you planted late in the spring, early in the summer, start kind of like dying back, things like beans and peas and such. A lot of those, you'll get a big boom harvest, but then they'll start to die back. So I like to replenish them with the new plants so that I keep getting a high yield. These are moringas. These are Tyler's babies. And then we've got a pepper plant back there. Again, not much happening. More tomatoes. I believe this is another one of those giant crimson. And then these are actually spinach. Tyler's growing these. I don't know the variety, but they're really interesting looking. They kind of look like succulents. And then we've got more of them up here, as well as some lettuce. And then over on this side is, again, some peppers. Oh, this is cumin. So we wanted to try and grow cumin this year because that's a spice we use a lot of. And then we've got our green stalk. A lot of things here are dying back, but as you can see, I did pull a lot and I reseeded. And so we've got some new lettuce coming back, which is exciting. And then we have this little lonesome ground cherry. Funny story about that. So I was out here watering the other day and I saw that ground cherry had popped up in our tomato bed. It must have been something along the lines of our compost that we put in there. And then later that evening, Tyler was talking. He was like, you know what? I'm kind of bummed that we didn't do ground cherries this year. And I said, wait a minute. We did. There's one that volunteered. So he got to go out and scoop that up and he put it in the pot, which I just thought was really cool. It was cool that it worked out that way. Okay, so now we are moving into our biggest pride and joy, I think. This is definitely like my favorite. We're gonna go into the big garden. It's just crazy how much has really changed in the last couple weeks. So I know that you guys haven't seen it in a while. It's gonna look totally different, but it still has a long way to go. So I'll start on the outside here. I have weeded this multiple times, believe it or not, and it's still growing in. But anyways, we've got some squash plants. Well, we had two. One died off. We got one here. And then as you move along the fence line, we have more of them. I think I planted 6 or 7. And look. So we actually have our first butternut squash. Oh, look, we got another one down there too. They're coming along. This will be wild here very soon. So as a means of growing more food that is food that we actually like to eat, I love butternut squash. I think it's my favorite of all of the squashes. I really like zucchini too. There's a lot you can do with it, but butternut squash is definitely one of my favorites. And we decided again to utilize this fence line and grow food along the fence line so that we can get a higher yield. All right, so moving in, we've got my pepper bed. There's not much to see here quite yet, other than some weeds. So down here, Tyler had cleared this out. I don't know if you guys really remember this. It was an overgrown disaster. He cleared it out, and now he's got some cucumbers growing up along the side here with the idea that if they grow on the inside of the chicken coop, the chickens eat them. If they grow on the outside, we get them. I made the executive decision to pull all of my noodle beans because they weren't doing very good, and I direct sowed. So some of them are coming back up here. It looks like we might have one right there coming too. But for some reason, all the ones down on this end didn't do anything. And speaking of volunteers and getting plants that we didn't initially think that we were planting this year, we have not planted cucamelons in years because they just keep coming back in our bed. So we figure we're probably gonna have them, no problem. This year, that wasn't the case. There's not a single cucamelon that actually came up in this bed, except for in one spot. Right here, out of the crack of the side of the bed. And it looks like we've actually got quite a few in here. It looks like there's about 4 plants, 5 plants maybe. So I'm just gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go. And if it makes it, awesome. If it doesn't make it, that's okay too. It'll find the arch at some point and we'll be good. We'll be all set. Next is my tomatoes and more beans. So we got those beans. I pulled the initial ones. And then my tomatoes. Look guys, they're finally doing something. For the longest time, Tyler's tomatoes were like massive and I just had these little tiny baby sprouts. But they're actually like substantially getting there. I don't know what that is though. There's something going on in those leaves down there. Gotta address that. But yeah, we're doing it. So I'm excited about this. We don't really have any tomatoes on mine yet, but we do have flowers. So it's getting there. And then look at these beans. So gorgeous. They're doing fabulous. These, I believe, are the Cherokee Trail of Tears. I think. I believe. Here, there's a tag. Nope, they're Kentucky Wanderer. All right, Kentucky Wanderer. And guys, we've got so many beans on here. Harvest time for sure. Look at this. Let's see how many I can get. Actually, I just want to point out one more thing. So, okay, as much as I'm like raving about this side of the arch and how good it's doing, right? Check out Tyler's side. Still doing better. Still doing better than mine. Now, there's something happening to the leaves here, though.
They're caterpillars. Turn them upside down. They're like weird yellow spiky caterpillars.
So pretty, though. Yeah, that's them. Well, we'll address that.
So it's hard to tell because I can't back up far enough to get them all in there, but there's the San Maranzanos all in the back, and then this year I split the bed a little bit and put some peppers in the front. This should be a yellow jalapeno, green jalapeno, and a paprika plant. And then she already showed you the beans on the arch that look great.
What did you do differently in your bed this year?
So this year, well actually at the end of last year, I actually dug half the bed up and hugelcultured half, filled it in, and then did the other half. I also tend to put a lot of additives in my soil at the beginning of every year. My corazol inoculant go in when the plants go in. Like I said, I hugelcultured the bottom. We split all the compost that we had into all 3 beds and then some of the pots. I usually put azomite, which is like crushed up minerals in there too. And then I also added like a calcium powder to help with the tomatoes and the peppers with their end rot. And that's really all I added extra. So here on the left side we have tiger melons. They are starting to get up the arch. On the other side here we have yard-long cucumbers. Hopefully they take off. They're getting really bushy at the bottom, so hopefully they find the arch and continue to grow up. So moving into the in-ground part, we'll do a big loop. We have peas on the fence that are starting to give us some peas. We've got bush beans all the way down here, down into a Swiss chard plant that looks like it's doing pretty good. Making the loop around, we've got yellow jalapenos, we've got green jalapenos, and we've got 2 more paprika plants, and then Melissa added all of these bell peppers. Moving on to the back, we have cucumbers all the way down and some very chewed up Brussels sprouts. Melissa wants to show her beans.
So this is what we got. This is how many we got. Just off of just one One picnic.
Which side? Which side
Both.
did they come off?
It was both.
Uh-huh.
Tell me what.
Win.
So my goal this year is to can as much as possible. Like we keep talking about, you know, high yields. And so these I'm definitely going to can. Now I don't have enough right here to fill full jars. So what I do is I blanch them first, and that is key. You want to blanch them first and then throw them in the freezer. And if you once you get like a full freezer bag full, then you can pull them out, thaw them, and can them. That's what we did last year. A few of them, the jars that we had from last year, I did not blanch before, and they were like just really like tougher, chewier. If you blanch them first, they are a little easier to chew, per Tyler's instructions, because he doesn't like chewy beans. These were supposed to have flowers in them. The flowers died. I might cheat and buy flowers at this point. So sad. I did have bachelor buttons planted there, and like I said, they didn't survive, so that's too bad. I do have some going up in here, but I don't think those are bachelor buttons. I think those are marigolds. But they also don't look too hot, so I don't know what we're gonna do about that. Oh look, speak of the devil. Bachelor buttons, there they are. So this one survived. That's good. I think these are really pretty. I had like a ton of them one year that totally filled in, and it was just really pretty. These are growing kind of lengthy, but that's fine. All right, we've got some cucumbers to pick here. Now, I do recognize some of them are way past picking time. So like this one here, he is, you can tell because he's like yellow. He's really, really like fat. He might be a little bit past picking time. We're gonna take him anyways though, and we're gonna save him for seeds. So we're gonna just take the seeds out. I think there's another one here somewhere that's kind of in the same boat, but prime time to pick examples. These guys right here. So this one and this one are perfect for picking, and we are gonna turn these into pickles. My peas are still going. These are my favorites. Get some of these. I love these peas, the sugar snap peas. They are amazing. And I would imagine that they'd be really good in like an Asian stir fry. But the reality is I don't really know because they never really make it into the house. Well, I'm sure that this video is long enough at this point, so I think we're gonna stop here. We will do more videos of tours so that you can see the front yard. Next videos, next week maybe. But for now, I'm gonna take my haul in and start processing. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon.